Hey everyone, it's me HawkeyeG, and we're here with another faction introduction video. Today's video will be on the Sisters of Twilight faction of the Wood Elves. So, while they're not the most recent, they're still relatively new and I've enjoyed playing them before. Additionally, I'm aiming to make a campaign army composition guide on the Wood Elves next, so I thought I'd make this video on my way to that. I'm also hoping to make this particular faction introduction a little shorter. I feel like in general I spend too much time rambling and wasting time on them, so I think they'd benefit from being more concise. As per usual, in this guide I'll be covering the faction bonuses they get, their legendary lord, and the unique mechanics the faction has. So, with that, let's jump in and get started. Alright, so here we are with the Sisters of Twilight. So like I said, we always start looking at the faction bonuses. The first one you see here is the Forge of Daith. That's actually a unique mechanic for this particular faction, so we will talk about that later. You've got another bonus, ammunition plus 10% for all armies. Obviously, so the Wood Elves factions basically get split into like Elven or like Treekin types, right? Like Dryad units where the Lord and the army and the factions either specialize more on the Elven units, which are like some of their melee infantry and the archers, and then you've got the tree units, which are more of the heavier like forest spirit creatures, those different kinds of things. So my point with this is one of the Elven like missile focused armies. You can tell because they get 10% ammunition to all increase to all of their units. The last one is the Volley of Kurnos for Hawk Riders. Now, if that name sounds familiar, it's because it's the hero ability that Wood Elf heroes get, where it shoots like 3 homing arrows at an enemy. That's actually really nice. It like arcs up into the air first so that you can shoot it over walls and over defenses a lot of the times to get a pretty clean hit. However, this means that every Hawk Rider you make, like each individual Hawk Rider, gets that ability for themselves. Right, so you have these Hawk Riders that honestly don't have great stats, but they have the ability to use that Volley of Kurnos like per unit. So for 18 units on large battle size, it's pretty decent. Honestly, they're a trash unit otherwise. I would not normally recommend getting Hawk Riders, but like 2 to 4 in each army in this campaign works really nicely. With that being said, that really covers all the faction bonuses here. Ammunition increase is pretty straightforward, tells you they're a missile-focused faction. You got the Volley of Kurnos for your Hawk Riders, and the Forge of Daith, which we'll talk about later. So let's talk about the Legendary Lord. So the Sisters of Twilight are a unit that actually start mounted on an eagle. I mean, you don't see it here, but if I switch off the mount, they'll be flying on an eagle. They have this nice little ranged attack that they can alternate between. So they have like a single target high damage and then like a multi-target spread shot that they have. They also have the trait Dusk and Dawn. This gives upkeep reduction for their missile units and then melee attack and charge bonus for their flying units. Now, if we're talking about like on the fun side of things, right, that's what these flying unit bonuses are for. Like the missile units upkeep is an obvious one, especially paired with the ammunition increase. But so let's talk about that for just a second. The melee attack increase. I mean, if we look at the options we actually have here, you got the Great Eagle, Hawk Riders, and a Forest Dragon, right? Remember, it's 10 melee attack increase, 15% charge bonus. You really don't want to be using the Hawk Riders as a melee unit. You can see their stats are garbage. They technically have armor-piercing weapon strength, but I'd like melee with these as a last resort. Now, Forest Dragon, perhaps, I mean, these are good for like flanking and for getting like hero snipes, but they're really, I don't know, it's what they need. Like melee attack and charge bonus are good increases, but it still can be, like, I don't know, I would say you don't want to overcommit to something like Forest Dragons, at least not until very late game with good economy. I don't know that those bonuses are enough for you to commit to, like, having Forest Dragons as your front offensive line, right? The only unit I really think that's helpful for the most is the Great Eagle, because this is like a tiny dragon, but you have it much earlier in the game, right? And so that kind of boost to those stats in the early game is going to make Great Eagles a much more effective unit and should make them much more prevalent in your early game campaign. Great for harassing, dealing damage, very versatile unit. So if we go back to looking at the Sisters of Twilight, we go to their skills page, we can take a look at some of the unique skills. So the mount that they're currently on is the Seth and Har. Now, I actually want to switch off of that. Basically, once you do the quest for this mount, you can either have them mounted on a dragon and summon an eagle, or mounted on an eagle and summon a dragon. It's kind of nice to be able to summon the dragon over versus having them mounted on it. We've also got the challenge to Daith, so this gives you an extra point, like a chance to earn an additional point to spend at the Forge, which we'll talk about later. And then the rest of, well, okay, actually, you have the Prey of Anathrema, which this is really good, obviously. It causes enemies to be unable to move and drops their missile resistance. It's great to use on a Lord as they approach your front lines and then kind of focus them down, or really any like large single entity target. Besides that, most of what they have is campaign bonuses, some bonuses to flying units, and then like a little bonus to themselves, right? We've got like ward save here, we've got public order, growth, and diplomacy, we've got campaign bonuses here again, replenishment, movement, and line of sight. We've got ambush chance, again, campaign bonuses, right? Raising and post-battle loot income. Now here we've got a bonus for the flying units, so income or upkeep reduction, physical resistance, and then vanguard deployment for them, as well as for the Sisters of Twilight. Last, we have another ward save, and then an ability use increase for the flying units. So you can see that this is probably... I definitely wouldn't recommend going full-on flying units in any other army. You definitely want to take advantage of the ammunition bonus. I still would probably put a couple of Hawk Riders in because Volley of Kurnos is very strong, so having like 2 to 4 of these in each army can be effective. But basically with this army, you can do the flying unit thing because you have enough of the bonuses for it, but that kind of shows you why you don't want to do it in other armies, because without those bonuses, it won't be great. Plus an army of like just dragons, Hawk Riders, and eagles, I mean, it could work, but it just dies too easily to like spearmen and archers, you know what I mean? So you've got those options. You definitely can still just, with the couple of bonuses that you have to missile units, I personally stuck with that for the most part for this campaign. I'd probably recommend you do 2. And then of course with the ward save, plus if you put Ariel in the army, that's another 10% ward save. They can actually be a pretty solid melee fighter. They've got a lot of great skills for it. So those are the things to keep in mind with the Sisters of Twilight as a legendary lord. So, the last thing to talk about is the Forge of Daith mechanic, and in general the unique mechanics for the Wood Elves here. I want to start with the Forge of Daith because I do want to talk a little bit about the Deep Roots and the Forest Revival system, but technically those apply to all Wood Elf factions. They were just like introduced with the rework that came out alongside this particular DLC. So, we're starting with the Forge of Daith. It's just another item crafting mechanic, basically. They did rework this relatively recently, so if you haven't played since the DLC came out, you're definitely not going to recognize this. Basically, those Forge of Daith points we talked about, you can get up to 3 favor. You get it for every battle the sisters win. And like I said, there's that skill point that gives them a chance at getting an extra one. So basically like an extra point every 3rd battle. And you just have like a series of items that all have like kind of a theme to them, or a certain like set of bonuses or focus. These different items are better on different like types of lords, and so which ones you think suit your playstyle or what kind of units you're going for, you can certainly make your own decisions on that. You also have these blessings where for 1 point you can buy a 5-turn blessing, and each of these is pretty nice. These are all really good. They can be kind of situational, so again it's just kind of like depending on your army composition, or just depending on what situation you're in the campaign, where some of your armies might need attrition resistance, or maybe you just want to boost your missile strength because you're going to have some tough battles. Whatever the case may be, that's basically it. It's fairly simple. The one other piece is that you can actually do something called reforging, where what you do is you get a crafted version of that item instead. We don't have one right now. Well, so if I look at something like the Dragon Pendant here, right, you can see it gives hit points, physical resistance, and casualty replenishment increase. If I were to reforge it, for 5 turns it gets upgraded to crafted quality, and you can see the stats change, right? Ward save over physical resistance, and you gain piercing bolts of burning, plus the other bonuses are increased. So it's pretty much the same for all of these, right? But it costs 2 points to do that, and it's only a 5-turn thing, whereas you can get these up to unique quality for all of them, and it's 1, 2, 3 points. Right, like this is cost 1, cost 2, cost 3. So I'm not saying you shouldn't reforge it. It's kind of like the blessings, where you want to use it situationally. If there's a time where getting a big boost on something right now, especially in the early game when these are only level 1, you reforge something so that it goes straight to that crafted quality and can really save you from whatever situation you're about to be in. You can equip this gear on any of your characters. I basically tend to stick to lords for it because you don't have a ton of these, right? And you're going to end up with more than 4 armies if you play long enough. So if you want to know which ones I took specifically for the Sisters, I took the Dragon Pendant here, especially early on, being able to get that casualty replenishment as well as making the Lord stronger and better surviving. I gave them the Eagle Mask, research rate, again having that early on, and the ambush success chance really can tilt things in your favor, especially with the Wood Elves playstyle. I took the Twilight Spear, probably didn't really need it, but we've got ammunition increase and upkeep reduction. Why not also take missile strength increase for that army? And so again, that's why like picking different kinds of like tools depending on how you plan to use the Lord or what kind of army you plan to bring might be worth keeping in mind. Then for the last piece, I took this Dreaming Boots, right? Evasion chance, speed, campaign movement range, just making sure that this is going to be my like best and most aggressive and most capable of fulfilling tasks on the campaign map army. So that should cover everything on the Forge of Daith. I wanted to talk about the other mechanics that they added during the rework that this DLC came out at. The first is the Deep Roots. Again, it's technically not a unique mechanic. All Wood Elf factions get this now. It allows you to travel from any Wood Elf settlement to another, even if you don't control that settlement at the time. Okay, and it also gives you this really nice overview so you can see your forest health and situation at a glance, right? But so if I have an army parked in one of these settlements, I can then like move. I have to go to this menu, and with that army selected, I would click on the button where I want them to go. You teleport there instantly. You can use this to get to the other ones, even if you haven't, like, that's how you get control of all of your forests in this game now as the Wood Elves, is you're able to just teleport there. You'll also often get a quest related to them, like for Orion's Camp, I had to defeat him once in battle, and it allowed me to confederate him. So just some things to keep in mind with that. That's how the Deep Roots work. Again, it gives you this really nice overview. And in that overview, we can really easily see something called your forest health. Again, another new mechanic that introduced with this DLC, technically not unique because it applies to all the Wood Elf factions. So each forest has a health meter. The health of the forest can be improved by acting upon like the settlements nearby it. Okay, right? I'm trying to get out of this. Whatever, we're gonna keep the visual effects, I guess. So you can see like this is the forest, and then all of the zones around it have this little tree symbol, right? If we jump over here, kind of the same deal. So essentially, here's how it works. If these settlements are under your control, or they're destroyed, or they're owned by somebody you have either a defensive or military alliance with it, they give positive health. You can see all of these are giving me +1 per health per turn to this forest, right? If they're a neutral settlement, right, if like somebody you're neutral towards, not at war with or whatever, owns it, then nothing happens. And if it's owned by somebody you're actually at war with, you will actually lose 1 forest health per turn by default on them. So the forest health meters give better bonuses at different stage. You can kind of see that here. Generally, the bonuses are going to be something like a diplomacy bonus for whatever factions in that area, some kind of campaign bonus, whether that's upkeep, recruitment cost, experience, movement, range, stuff like that, a global recruitment cap increase, and a boost to your primary forest health increase. Okay, so every campaign you'll have like a primary forest. That's essentially the goal of your campaign, is to get it to full health and restore it. In the Vortex campaign specifically for the Sisters, you have the Witchwood as your primary forest. In all other Wood Elf campaigns on the Mortal Empires, you have the Oak of Ages as your primary forest. And playing as Drycha is the only time you don't start with the Oak of Ages under your control, okay? So once you get this health meter to full, you can trigger what's called a Ritual of Rebirth. Basically what this does is it spawns a couple of little events on the map that after a set number of turns will spawn an enemy force. So you can try to take them out, like you can essentially ambush them before they get to start those attacks by just reaching the space in time before it appears. Otherwise, it'll spawn like full strength armies. Those armies will attempt to destroy this settlement. You have to make sure that this settlement survives for the number of turns that it gives you, and then the ritual will be complete. You'll get a bonus associated with it, so it's going to be like monetary reward and a couple of temporary campaign bonuses, something like perhaps like public order or upkeep reduction, growth bonuses, and increases the it decreases the cooldown, decreases the reuse time on the deep roots function. So, you know, when I use this travel network, I can't just use it every turn. But so you can get that bonus, you can get that temporarily reduced when you complete a ritual. It also will lock in the forest health at its top level, right? So you have to get it to 100, and then you can do the ritual, and then it'll stay locked in at that level. So you don't have to worry about what happens if you gain or lose that territory around you. So, with that, I think I've covered everything that I want to in this faction introduction. We've talked about the bonuses that they get and how it represents what their faction is and what it's good at. We talked about the legendary lord, the kind of armies that you can build with them, and the kind of bonuses that they give and can get. And we talked about some of the unique mechanics here, a couple of them being mechanics that are introduced to all Wood Elf factions, but the Forge of Daith specifically is for this faction. So, I hope you learned some things. I hope you know a little bit more about the Heralds of Ariel now. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, have a great day, and we'll see you on the next one.